I watched two films and both had doubles, so I kind of figured, like, let's mash them together and do like one big review.
Who are you?
What's happening?
I'm you, but I'm from the future.
So the first film I watched was Mike and Nick and Alice, written and directed by Ben David Grabinski, and it stars Vince Vaughn, Isa Gonzalez, James Marsden, and Keith David. Okay, so the plot of the film is Vince Vaughn plays Nick, who is a gangster. Like everyone in this film is gangster or gangster related. And he has time traveled back from like 6 months in the future. And he's trying to stop himself from doing something stupid. And in order to do that, he needs the help of another gangster by the name of Mike. And then along the way, his wife also gets involved, who is Alice, played by Isa Gonzalez. And at the same time, you have Keith David, who is their boss, whose idiot son, Jimmy Boy, has come out of prison. And he's trying to find the rat who sent him to prison so that they can punish him. What Vince Vaughn is trying to do is sort of connected to what Keith David's character is trying to do. Okay, so where do you begin with this? Like, it's okay. Like that's probably the shortest review I can make for this. The good thing about the movie is it has a very good cast, right? Like the actors are good. So with actors like this, you can give them a mediocre script and they will make it work, which is what this film is. It's a good premise, because it's like, okay, you have time travel and you have this guy who's trying to stop himself from doing something stupid, and like that's a good premise, and you have a good set of actors, except that the script doesn't really live up to those expectations. And more than the script, like the dialogues don't work most of the time. So it is a comedy, but it's not funny enough. Like if you watch the trailer, there's this scene where they talk about chloroform and that goes on for far too long, and like James Marsden's character, like Mike, doesn't know what chloroform is, and you're like, this is very stupid. And maybe it would have worked as a 2-second joke. It goes on for like 30.
Who's this?
It's chloroform.
Chlor what?
You don't know what chloroform is?
Should I know what chloroform is?
And then you have this other scene where they're all four of them sitting down, like the two Mikes, the two Nicks and Mike and Alice, and they suddenly start discussing Gilmore Girls, and you're like, so there's a lot of weird pop culture references in this, which don't necessarily work, but it's just like there. And then even in the end, it's like this. They reference Gilmore Girls. Like maybe the director likes Gilmore Girls or thought it would be funny. I don't know. So yeah, like a lot of the comedy doesn't work. Like some of it, because it's like the kitchen sink approach where they're just throwing everything at the wall. So yes, there are scenes where it does work. Like in the trailer, it sort of mentioned that the assassin who's been hired to kill the rat is a cannibal. So that scene is kind of funny.
Have you ever heard of the Baron? He's a cannibal assassin.
Hello, hello, hello. You look delicious.
And then there's a really nice scene where Vince Vaughn's character goes to like a petrol pump or like a gas station and he's trying to buy something, and then the police shows up, and like that scene is done really well. So you have scenes which work, but then you also have a lot of scenes which don't work. So it's a very middle of the road kind of a thing. But then the big surprise that comes up is the last 10 minutes where it turns into John Wick. And that's a good surprise.
But that's why I'm back.
Because suddenly it's like this mediocre, more comedy, less action kind of a movie, which just suddenly turns into John Wick. And like a really well done. Like very good, like the end gun battle that happens is extremely well done. And I was suddenly like, where did this come from? Like my big takeaway from that was that James Marsden should do more action movies. He should probably go down the road that Bob Odenkirk has done, where he's doing like Nobody, and then there's this new movie coming out, which I don't, like he's a sheriff of a small town and that gets attacked, and he's doing more action stuff. I think James Marsden should also do that because he's a good actor And when you see this, you kind of go like, he's really good at action as well. So yeah. So yeah, like the last 10 minutes are definitely worth it. It's just that you have to get to the last 10 minutes, and it's a very bumpy road to get to the last 10 minutes. So is it bad? No. Is it it's slightly better than White Noise. You know, it's not a movie where you have, you know, laundry to do or you're cooking and you just want something running in the background. It's marginally better than that, you know. So, you know, it's not like a lot of the Netflix stuff where, I don't know if anyone even remembers, there was that Jennifer Lopez movie where, like this sci-fi movie where she's in a mech called Atlas. I don't think anyone watched that one. So it's not as bad as that, but it's not much better either. So yeah, it's fine. You know, if you are bored one day and you have nothing else to watch, watch Mike and Nick and Alice.
And time machines are super grounded in reality. Yeah.
Okay, which brings me to the second movie, which is The Man Who Haunted Himself. And this is a good movie. You know, so the way I found out about this one was Twitter. You know, so I follow a lot of Twitter accounts which talk about movies. So, you know, you find out random stuff. And somebody had posted like an interview of Roger Moore. So this stars Roger Moore. And Roger Moore was like, you know, this was the movie where I got a chance to act. Like this was his favorite movie. And because, which is kind of true, right? Like most of Roger Moore's career, he's played like suave and smooth and sophisticated characters. Like he started off his career with The Saint, where he's a very suave and smooth and sophisticated thief. And then he did like one season of the show called The Persuaders, which is Roger Moore and Tony Curtis. And he plays like a suave and smooth and sophisticated millionaire who's trying to solve crime. And then, of course, he got to play the ultimate suave and smooth and sophisticated spy when he did James Bond. And then post that, his career wasn't particularly memorable. Like he did Cannonball Run, right? And like he did other movies, like he did stuff like Wild Geese and, you know, things like that. But yeah, like his career isn't comparable to someone like Sean Connery, where Sean Connery, even post James Bond, was doing some really good stuff. Like he did Untouchables, and he did The Man Who Would Be King, and he did Zardos. So yeah, like Roger Moore's career wasn't that. So he was like, I got this one movie where I got the chance to act, and so like, okay, let's check that out. And it is a very well made movie. So as I said, the movie is called The Man Who Haunted Himself. It's directed by, let me just check because I've forgotten the name. Okay, so it's directed by Basil Dearden, and it's based on a novel called The Strange Case of Mr. Pelham. So Roger Moore plays Mr. Pelham. And the plot is nice. You know, the plot is pretty interesting. So it starts off with, like Roger Moore's character is, you know, Mr. Pelham, who works for this nautical engineering company. Like it's a small nautical engineering company which is making some sort of top secret project.
Good night, Tom.
Good night, Mr. Pelham.
And he gets off from work and he's driving, and then suddenly his, you know, the look on his face changes and he just starts to speed up, and he goes faster and faster and faster, and eventually just crashes the car and ends up in a hospital almost dead. And then on the operating table, he dies. But then when he comes back, like they manage to bring him back to life. Now, but there are like two heartbeats, you know, and then someone slams, and then it goes back to being one heartbeat. And then a few months pass by, and he's sort of rehabilitated, and he's done his physical therapy and all of that, and he's back to office. But then he starts meeting people who randomly sort of go like, oh, you know, it was nice meeting you on Thursday, and we had a nice game of billiards and stuff.
I say, I'm sorry I landed you in it. You don't want an alibi, do you?
No, why should I?
Oh, just asking. You know, I thought after last Thursday you might have made it away.
What on earth's last Thursday got to do with it?
And he's like, I was in Spain on Thursday, like, how could I meet you? And then he meets other people who are like, oh, I owe you some money from that poker game that we had, and like, I never played poker. So he starts to sort of, and those sort of instances keep increasing, where there are people who have met him and he has no memory of meeting these people, and he starts to think that, you know, maybe this has something to do with this deal that his company is doing with a much larger engineering company which is trying to buy them, and there is some rumor that maybe they know that they're building this top secret technology, so they can use that, and they think like someone has leaked that information. So he's like, maybe they're trying to frame me for that by having like a double.
So there has been a leak.
Well, I don't know. I'm getting too old for this jungle. How could it happen, Bill?
Come on, Charles, espionage isn't all James Bond and Her Majesty's Secret Service. Industry goes in for it too, you know.
And he keeps getting like increasingly more and more paranoid about what is happening. Like suddenly finds out he has a mistress and he's like, I have never slept with anyone except my wife. So it just sort of keeps increasing.
Who are you?
And Roger Moore does a pretty good job. Like the movie overall is rock solid. Like it's a good script. Roger Moore does a good job. Like the entire cast does a good job, and they maintain the suspense really well. Like almost like, even though I had like my guesses of what is happening, you couldn't exactly be sure, but they maintain the suspense almost till like the last 5 minutes of the movie, where it's finally revealed like what exactly is happening. Even though you do get like a big hint, because the company that, the rival company or the big company that's trying to buy them is named EGO. So you kind of go like, oh, okay,
I'm convinced that EGO know we've made the breakthrough.
I can't believe it.
It's inconceivable. It's top secret.
Yeah.
But it still, holds off on revealing the whole thing for a pretty long time. So it does a very good job with it. Like the only complaint I'll have is it could have been more stylish. Like when you have a plot like that where you're sort of like dealing with multiple personalities, or maybe there is a duplicate, or things like that, and where he ends up in a place and he's like walking up to a guy who thinks is his double. I think the film should have been more stylish, like better camera angles, more, lit a little better, more use of, I don't know, like reflections and stuff. So just to, increase that duality kind of a thing. But it's, even for what it is, it's well made. It's from when is it from? It's from 1960, sorry, it's 1970. So yeah, it's a solidly directed movie. Like there's no cinematic flair to it, but it's well made. And because the plot sort of holds your interest, it never loses you. The one interesting thing is like seeing Roger Moore dressed like that was kind of funny, because he's got like this small mustache, and he's very upper middle class or upper class British businessman sort of, and he wears like a bowler hat, and he reminded me of, like, he looks very much like that painting of that guy in a bowler hat who has an apple for a face. I'll put up a link. I'll put up an image of that painting. But yeah, he sort of reminded me a lot of that. Maybe that was on purpose. I don't know. Maybe the painting is before that, or I have no idea about, is the painting from before 70s or whatever. But yeah, he looks kind of interesting in like a bowler hat. But yeah, overall, this is a film I would definitely recommend. Like if you want to watch something interesting, even though you can sort of guess what is going to happen, but it still does, a good job of maintaining the suspense. And there is a point in the end where you do get, two of them, and that I won't put that shot because it's kind of a spoiler. But you have two of them together, and they do a pretty good job, because you have like one Roger Moore walking around another Roger Moore, and for the 70s, that's a pretty difficult shot to pull off, and you can make out, like, they cut out one of the Roger Moores and like did an optical whatever, like superimposed him on top of this. But yeah, it's done well. Okay, it's always fun to see those kind of twin kind of effects being done in movies before there was computer graphics, because now, like, when you see something like Mike and Nick and Alice, it's seamless. Like you have two Vince Vaughns, they mix it seamlessly. It's still a lot of work, because you have to sort of cut it in specific ways if you have the characters interacting and things like that. But on the computer it becomes a bit more easier because you have better tools. On optical, I'm guessing you have to like cut the film. I have no idea, but yeah, it would be a lot more difficult. Like you watch something like Prisoner of Zenda, which is from like the version that I have seen is from 1930s, and there's a scene in that where like there's the prince and his lookalike, and his whatever his duplicate, and there's this point where he's lying on the bed and the doppelganger sort of puts his hand on his shoulder, but it sort of like goes behind a curtain, so that's how they hide it. But yeah, like stuff like that is always amusing to watch. But yeah, overall, definitely recommend Man Who Haunted Himself. If you get a chance, you should absolutely check it out.